Hello everyone, welcome to another video. So this is going to be pretty much what the meta is in the Elder Scrolls Online PvP scene at the moment. I came up across a lot of these in Cyrodiil and Battlegrounds. So not only have I went and designed kind of what the meta is and what everyone's running and what works really well at the moment, I've also made a build that actually counteracts what the more commonly is used. So that way you're not just coming up against people with the exact same build, you're actually coming up with a slightly better build than what they're using. Alright, so you've got it's a Dragonknight. Now this is a stamina, it's kind of all stamina based, but it's quite tanky, it uses health. We have no food on at the moment. So you can see there we were still sitting at 30k with no food and 22,000 health. Okay, now yeah, health in itself is gonna be decently high, but you're gonna have to stick with we're running Smoke Bear Hunch basically is what I'm saying. So when we apply that, you get 34,000 health, but we're still quite low on the stamina. If you feel like this health is a little bit too high for you, feel free to drop some into the stam. But what I found is, because everyone's kind of running tanky builds at the moment, you need to be able to survive for a long period of time. And if you really wanted to change the food up, you could use one that gives you health and stam, but you might lose out on a bit of the recovery. But essentially this build works around a lot of heavy attacks anyway. So the recovery and the amount of stamina we have don't particularly matter too much. That's why they're slightly lower than average that I would normally go for. And because we're centering around heavy attacks, it allows us to focus on putting more into the damage. You'll see in the gameplay how it works, how well it can work. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you're going to be completely invincible, but you put this build on, you're probably not going to die as much as you probably are if you're struggling at the moment with the kind of, not the shift in the meta, but the way kind of people are playing now. Surprisingly, you know, we're still going for dots, but not as much. We're not relying on dots as much as we used to, since they then got nerfed. Or they now last longer, but over, you know, they do less ticks. So again, it's down to overall damage that we want to put out, and you can see here sitting on our front bar, or our offensive bar, sorry, we're sitting at 4,500 completely unbuffed. Okay, just to go over the kind of character sheet, we are a Nord. Again, works really well here because we're going to be using our ultimate quite a lot, our Dragon's Leap, which I'll get into when I go through the skills. But you could potentially run Orc as well, or Imperial. Just, you know, adjust your stats accordingly based on what changes if you do change the race. I found Nord worked perfectly. I was using Dark Elf as well. I know Dark Elf isn't really massively in the meta at the moment, but Dark Elves do get a resistance to fire. Now again, if Dragon Knights are within the main meta of the game at the moment for PvP, having that resistance to fire really helped. But I chose to opt for the overall resistance we get from being a Nord, and the ultimate regen as well. I found, for me personally, the way I was playing, that worked better. Alright, so you can see there we got 32 and 32, like evenly spread basically. If you know me, you know my magic number for health is 30k. But just for this build I wanted to go a bit higher and see how I managed with a bit less stamina. And honestly, as long as you weave in your heavy attacks pretty well, you can get used to having the less stamina anyway. And like I say, you can see here the only buffs we have at the moment, we're using the Warrior as our Mundus. This, you know, you don't need to look at this right now. It's purely the event that's happening right now. So we're just getting extra experience. That's all that's doing. And then we've got the food on as well. We do have Major Prophecy, Major Savagery on at all times when on our front bar due to one of our skills, which helps our crit and stuff go up a little bit. And, you know, we're sitting on 27% crit here. The only thing that's fairly low here is our pen. But again, I'm not too concerned. It seems to work. Still really works well. I really did think that I was going to have to maybe go with the Lover Mundus Stone. If you find your damage is high enough and you want to just up the pen a bit, then feel free to go with the Lover. But honestly, I thought I'd test this out, and since putting the Warrior on and just concentrate on the overall actual weapon damage, it's been absolutely fine. Bear in mind, Dragon Knights get the option, or they get a passive that allows them to get minor, the minor version, is it? Oh, I can't remember the name of it. I'll tell you it literally in 2 seconds actually. One of them, it's in your Earth and Heart. Minor Brutality, sorry. So most people will get Major brutality and major sorcery to increase their weapon or spell damage, but we also get minor brutality from being a Dragonknight, hence why we push into the weapon damage. Same way when I talk to people about Templars, they get minor sorcery, which other classes don't. So therefore we're able to push into our spell damage, and our spell damage is going to pump out our overall damage, even on a Magicka Templar build, for example. So, on a Stamina Templar build. But obviously we're going Stamina based, and we're also going Dragonknight. So the weapon damage, the minor brutality really helps push up our weapon damage that even bit more. Okay, but we'll get into the skills in a minute. First thing we're going to go through, as always, is the gear. So first, our offensive set. Now, it was the meta a while ago. It's not being used as much now, but it still works perfectly well with these. And it's Plague Break. Now, we've got 2 Plague Break swords, again, pushing up the weapon damage. If you wanted to put in maces, again, lower the damage a bit, and up the pen, you could do. That's absolutely fine, due to one of the dual wield passives you get. So, well, it grants a bonus depending on what type of weapon you've got. So again, mace would increase the pen. So we'd get an extra just over 3,000 pen there if we went to maces. But again, weapons and spell damage is increased by swords. So I opted with the swords. Again, I tested both. I genuinely preferred the swords. We've got 1 sharpened to increase the pen. Ideally, this one would be Nernhorned, but Precise also works really well. I'll do, as always, I'll do a build link, and I'll do the optimum, like min-max, mid-max traits. Bear in mind I didn't have a lot of transmute crystals, but if you genuinely copy this build as the traits stand, it's going to work absolutely fine for you, okay? So that's our front bar. So we got Plague Break, and the Plague Break we've got on the jewelry as well. So we've got 2 pieces on the jewelry. Again, these are robust. Again, I was going to change these. Normally I would change them to infused, but because we had so much lower stamina, I kept them at robust, just to help pump up the amount of stamina we have as much. If you wanted to stick maybe a stamina recovery enchant on one of your pieces of jewelry, it wouldn't be the end of the world. To pump that up a little bit if you struggle with the heavy attacks. But again, that's that. And then we have a medium belt. Alright, in pen with a stamina enchant. And that's our 5-piece, completely covered with Plague Break there. Alright, you swap over to the back bar. We're actually using Clever Alchemist. Another alternative option could be Rallying Cry. You do lose out on a bit of health though. But you've got Clever Alchemist on the back bar here. And again, when you drink a potion during combat, you feel a rush of energy. Now, this increases your weapon and spell damage by 675 for 20 seconds. So again, that really works out well. Also, if you've got in your alchemy, if you've got the skill points, put medicinal use on, making the potions, the resulting effects last 30% longer as well. So that just helps keep the uptime on that a bit better. So we're using Sword and Shield, 1 defending, 1 sturdy. Weapon damage enchant on that. Oh, sorry, the charged and fiery weapons are the enchants on these 2, by the way. And then we're getting weapon damage enchant for our back bar to again proc even more weapon damage when we go in and attack with the sword before we swap over to our front bar. And then we've obviously got the shield, which just gives us a bit extra stamina. So you have a bit extra stamina on your back bar. It's never too much of a miss, because if you're on your defensive and you're trying to roll dodge and get out the way and sprint out the way and whatnot, having that extra little bit of stamina, it's only about 1,000, or it's not even that, it's 868, but it helps to have that little bit extra, okay? So where you would put Clever Alchemist, you've put it on your back bar, you've got Clever Alchemist Sword, and you've got Clever Alchemist Shield, and then you've just got medium feet, which are Impen and Stamina Enchant. You've got heavy legs, which are Tri-Stat with Impen Enchant, and then you've got medium gloves, hands, sorry, braces, which are again Impen with Stamina Enchant. We're using a lot of Impen on this build to buff us up against. This is where people aren't using at the moment. The Impen comes in because a lot of people are doing a lot of crit damage now. Crits we're slowly shifting towards crit being the main damage rather than pen. I think people are trying to shift things up a little bit, because everyone's pushing pen at the minute. Everyone's going for crit, and the crit resistance is low. So this is how we're able to counter that, by using the Impen. Okay, so you got 1 heavy and 2 medium there, across your body pieces like so. Whether if you want to swap one of these 3 out for Plague Break, and you've got a Clever Alchemist, that'll slot there. Whichever works fine out of these 3. Your hands, belt and shoes doesn't matter, but I would recommend having the heavy legs Clever Alch, because Plague Break only comes in medium set. whereas Clever Alchemist comes in all three. I would recommend the heavy piece go on your legs, okay? You've then got your monster set, which we're actually using Bloodspawn. Now, one is Impen, one is Divines. Again, you could probably push this up to Impen as well. But, like I say, if you run it exactly the same as I have, that one Divines has been absolutely fine. It's not bothered me at all. Bloodspawn helps with the stamina recovery. And then when we take damage, we have a 6% chance to generate more ultimate and increase our resistance by 3601. And this effect can occur every 5 seconds. Well, really good monster set. Now, a lot of people out there are going to be using Balog. Again, we're countering that, because when we're taking damage from it, we're getting more resistance and we're getting more ultimate back. Tying that in with the Nord passives is going to work out really well. And the reason I don't want to opt in for Balog on this, because with a Dragonknight, you're going to use your ultimate a lot more than you would with other people, because the ultimate's got a low cost. Balog in itself really is only good if you are holding out for that big 500, if you've got 500 available, okay? Whereas because we're going to be using this pretty much as soon as it's active on our major rotation, as soon as we can, it's part of like our main rotation. We're not getting we wouldn't be getting the full benefit out of Balog, so I don't recommend it as much as I do Bloodspawn. Okay, and Bloodspawn's a much easier monster set to get hold of if you don't already have as well, because it's a base game monster set rather than a DLC monster set, which Bloodspawn is. All right, we then have two one pieces. You've got Gallant Chain, which again is just basically one piece of the trainee set. It's a very Gallant Chain's a very easy one to get to, and it comes reinforced. So I always recommend a heavy chest piece with reinforced on it. Now, again, with that being part of the armor of the trainee set, we get 1400 extra health. What you do have though is a different option here, which would work absolutely fine. And I don't think I've got it on me right now. I don't, unfortunately. But you could slot in if you didn't have Gallant Chain and you had a heavy reinforced. It has to be heavy. It has to be reinforced. But if you have a Clever Alchemist one, because on your 4-piece, sorry, what have I pressed there? Sorry. Why am I crouching? Please stand up. On your 4-piece of Clever Alchemist here, you get extra 129 weapon damage. So you could have an extra 129 worth of weapon damage on your front. So if you really wanted to mid-max the actual weapon damage you're getting, that way you could, even on your front bar, you'd have 4 pieces of Clever Alchemist. But you are going to lose around 1400 health out of this, and that's the only thing you're getting. Now, again, for this build is I wanted to make it tanky and healthy. So you're going to go down to about 33,000 health. 33, 2 piece, 33, 2, 33, 3, whatever it is. Quick maths, I can't really do it at the minute. But anyway, that's the potential option. If you don't have Gallant Chain or you don't have a piece of the trainee heavy chest you can use, I would recommend the heavy reinforced Clever Alchemist, and you may be losing that health, but you get. For me, the amount of health you lose, the amount of weapon damage you gain, doesn't particularly bother us that much, hence why I'm not too bothered by it. But it is, again, a very valuable option. And then the last piece, we're using Mark, and a lot of people are running Sea Serpent at the moment. It's a really good mythic to use, but for this build, I like to get in, be bursty, and get out. Sea Serpent can work well with, for example, a Stamina Necro. But for this build in itself, I opted for Markin, and based on Battlegrounds using both mythics, I preferred Markin because, again, we're getting an extra 200 damage and armor. So it's adding to the damage we're getting, the damage output, sorry. And it's also getting to that tankiness and that being hard to kill, essentially. Alright. So that's the gear. I'm running on to the skills now super quick. I'll just run across them, kind of how you use them, and then I'll go in the rotation afterwards. So the first one's going to be Shattering Rocks. This is basically your stun. You encase them in molten rock, stunning them for 3 seconds. It's not the longest stun in the world, but it's still a really good stun. And also they take damage when it ends, and you get healed. Okay, which is always fun. Alright, you get 8,882 health back. Okay, it can't be blocked or dodged. Really good to pin them down once you get in. Okay, your pretty much rotation is going to be pretty much this. Alright, so then once they're stunned, you're then going to move on to your Noxious Breath. Again, dealing 6,015 poison damage, an additional 14,000 poison damage over 24 seconds. So it's, again, the dots are a lot longer now, so they don't tick for as much. But it also applies Major Breach, reducing their physical and spell resistance by 5948. Really good. Okay, a lot of people, you know, on other classes would be forced to use caltrops in this example, whereas this way we're able to use a dot ability and still get our major breach, so it works out perfect. Okay, if you've done PvP before and you know how the meta works, it's always about getting that major breach and lowering their resistance. So this again, they're stunned, and then you apply this. They've got a dot, they're taking poison damage, and their resistance is lower. Okay, you've then got Molten Whip. Now, the reason I use Molten Whip is because it kind of converts to like a half stamina based ability. Now, a lot of people will think, well, you could use sort of rending slashes here or something else as a different type of spammable. If, let's say, we were using two-hander on the front bar, this would be a dizzying swing. Okay, that would be our main spammable. Because I find that there's no major spammables with the dual wield, I opted in for this. Now, you strike an enemy that is immobile or stunned, we set them off balance. That's when our heavy attacks come in, similar to how dizzying swing works. Okay, so we don't dizzy and swing, we molten whip them, sorry, and then it goes into a heavy attack because we can then knock them down. All right, and whenever you activate a different ardent flame ability, you gain a stack of seething fury, increasing the damage of your next molten whip by 20%, and your weapon spell damage by 100 for 15 seconds. And this effect stacks up to 3 times, so you get an extra 300 weapon damage here as well. Overall, and increasing the attack of the next whip. So it's, again, that's why it's a good spammable. And then once they get under 20% health, you've got your whirling blades. Bog standard execute for dual wield builds, dealing 5729 physical damage to nearby enemies, and then it deals an extra 100% more damage to enemies that are less than 50% health. I tend to wait until they're a little bit lower than 50 to start using this, because this does cost 2,808 stamina in comparison to this one, which costs 1,079, and it costs 1,100 magicka as well at the same time. But again, because we're not really concerned about magicka, through this one skill, you might technically call this a hybrid build if you really want to, but I feel like it's very stamina based, and we're not running a resto staff or an ice staff on the back bar, which I know some people are opting into. I personally just go full tank, sword and shield, just get in there and fight. And yeah, it works perfect. So that's your execute, is your whirling blades. Flames of Oblivion, you can activate it before you go into the attack. It's not a major, don't worry about it too much if you don't. It just basically launches fireballs at 3 enemies every 5 seconds, dealing just under 6,000 flame damage there. Main reason that is there, because you can see, is while slotted we gain Major Prophecy and Savagery, increasing our crit rating by 2629. Alright, that's the only reason that's kind of slotted there. Same as when you use the Fighters Guild one. When you're not a Dragonknight, you use I haven't even really done my me Fighters Guild on this one, but the morph for this one, Camouflaged Hunter, that does the same. But again, this is just a nice, I'd rather have this ability, because at least then we're adding a little bit more damage to it rather than just having it there to be slotted. And then there's your ult. Okay, so you launch yourself at an enemy, dealing 13,000 flame damage to all enemies in the area, and we knock them back, stunning them for 2 seconds. Okay, so you can drop this in and then hit them with the stun or the off balance, and you work it into your rotation that way. After leaping though, you do gain a damage shield as well, just under 18,000 damage for 6 seconds, again adding to that tankiness. That's why I went for a ferocious leap rather than take flight. This ability as well scales with our max health. So again, hence why I've opted in to make us quite healthy, 34,000, because this then scales that ability up for us as well. And we're going to be using this ultimate a lot more than we would with other classes and their ultimates, for example. Your back bar, you've got your pretty much standard defensive kind of abilities here. So we've got our volatile armor. This, again, I went for volatile because it releases a spray of fiery spikes, which enemies take 11,000 damage over 20 seconds. So it's another dot there that we're applying to them. Again, we're not heavily relying on the dots too much, as you have with Dragonknight in the past. But it's still good to have that extra damage. When active, this it returns 566 flame damage to an enemy that uses a direct damage attack against you within melee range as well. So if you're in there and you're in amongst it, it's going to return damage to them. But the main thing we use it for is obviously to get our major resolve, which is the main thing to give anyone protection, which increases our resistance for 5948. And this ability itself actually scales off our damage, off our resistance, sorry. So again, when we go back to being a Nord and having that resistance there, so you can see on our back bar with nothing buffed up, we have 26,000 resistance straight off the bat there. and then we had about 23,000 on the front bar as well. So that's why we use that. Okay. Race against time. I've not even got it fully morphed up yet. But again, this is our major expedition to get in and get out of fights. It also adds minor force, again, increasing the movement speed by 30% from the major expedition, and then you get your crit damage by 10% as well. All right, so again, it adds that extra 10% crit damage. As you would use this either as you're going in, or for the damage, or you would use this as an escape tool as you're running out to give you the extra speed. All right, that's pretty much all you use it, and it also gets rid of any snares and grants immunity then for 3.3 seconds, which is always nice. Okay, it's not as nice as I would want it to be, but it's nice. It's nice to have. All right, this is our igneous weapon. This is basically our major brutality and major sorcery. Again, a staple of any PvP build. Increasing our weapon and spell damage by 20% for 1.2 minutes. Get really nice long buff on that one. You don't have to keep reapplying it all the time in comparison to some classes where you have to. But this also helps with your group as well. Some classes don't have an ability to give you and your group. So if you've got someone who's a bit newer to the game, they might not have access to major brutality. I mean, most classes do quite early on anyway, I'm not going to lie, but they might not know as much what they're doing or whatever, for whatever reason. You're giving it to your allies as well. If they forget to buff up, you're keeping them protected by giving them that extra damage. Alright. Coagulating blood, this is like our burst heal. So we draw on our draconic blood to heal for 10,000. Again, so you get down to 20,000. Sorry, if you get down to about 10,000 health and you need to pop this super quick, you're straight back up at 20,000. You also gain major fortitude, which increases your health recovery by 30% for 20 seconds as well. Okay, so our health recovery is always so low when you're in a PvP situation due to battle cry, right? A battle spirit, sorry. So in any PvP situation, if you aren't aware, you get battle spirit buff. Now, increases the range of abilities, but it reduces your healing received and health recovery by 50%. So if we weren't in Cyrodiil right now, and we didn't have this active, we would have about 900 health recovery, which isn't bad. But with this health recovery here, you know, it's still fairly low, not as low as some builds, trust me. I've definitely played with a lot worse, but having this ability here allows us to increase that again for 30% for 20 seconds, really good. And then you've got Resolving Vigor, again another heal that you can apply on. This gives you 19,000 health, but it's over 5 seconds. But they patched this a couple patches ago, where now when you activate Resolving Vigor as well, we use this more than anything to get that minor resolve. Increases our physical and spell resistance by 2974. So by using Resolving Vigor and that, we're getting minor and major resolve. That is something you should be doing in every build now, okay? And then our ultimate on the back bar is just Corrosive Armor. I hardly ever have to use it, but it is just nice to have there as a kind of, oh shit. If you really want to, you could swap in Temporal Guard, the Undo morph from Sigic Order, which is the ultimate for this one. Again, I haven't even bothered leveling up because I've not been using it, but it's absolutely fine. It still works. You could always slot that in there if you don't want to use Corrosive Armor. But while this is active, this ability and your direct damage ignores enemy physical and spell resistance. So it also buffs our damage output as well. It's really good. It only lasts for 12 seconds though. I personally would like it to last a bit longer with it being an ultimate, but ZeniMax told me to fuck off. I'm saying they told me to fuck off, I never asked them, but I'm just saying I would personally like it to be a bit longer. So yeah, that's the skills there. And then let me show you the champion points super quick as well. So just quickly run through them in your blue. You've got Occult Overload. Now again, I know this kind of got nerfed a little bit. It's not the end of the world, but because the way we're playing with Plague Break, with big AoE damage and nukes and jumping in there and we're doing big, this build is really a big AoE kind of Cyrodiil kind of build. It still works fine in Battlegrounds, trust me, but I feel like this build's at its best when it's outnumbered, and it works so well against big groups of people. So when we kill them, not only is the Plague Break going to pop off and explode, Occult Overload's also going to do that as well. And because we're using our dots that we still get from, you know, our breath and all that sort of stuff, they're going to be under the effect of a status effect, so it works out perfectly, alright? And it then applies a random status effect to each enemy it's hit, and this it can occur every 1 second. This did take a bit of a nerf, trust us, but it still works perfectly fine. I think a lot of people, when they see that something gets nerfed, they just stop using it, and then if you keep using it, it kind of works to your advantage a little bit. we've then got focused mending. This increases our healing done with single target heals by 2% per stage. So that's like our rallying cry and our coagulating blood. That helps and get us an extra 10% of health back. We've got Ironglad, which helps reduce the damage taken by direct damage attacks by 3%. And then we've got Fighting Finesse, which increases our crit damage and crit healing done by 4% per stage. So we get 8%. Alright? Like, very not... Like, these two aren't. Normally, I tend to go very aggressive in my blues and defensive in my reds. But I find this works absolutely fine. And yeah, it works out really well. I tested the majority of this in Battlegrounds as well. So I know it can work without these absolutely fine. Your reds, I've just noticed for some reason, this one, celerity, isn't up to what it needs to be. I don't quite know why it's not. Get rid of you. Sorry about that. Everything else is fine, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, I don't really care about you. I just use these for the last ones. So anyway. So, Survival Instinct, while effective with the status effect, our core combat skills cost 5% less, which are overall 25% less, which is really good. Fortified, adding more armor and more defensiveness when you're in Cyrodiil, really good. We've got Pain's Refuge, which reduces your damage taken by 2% for every 2 negative effects on you, up to 20%, which we currently have, which works out perfectly. And then the last one you've just seen there is Celerity, which again just increases our movement speed by 2%, so we get an extra 10% movement speed from that as well. If you're interested in the greens, I use War Mount, which just increases our mastery, improves it. So when we're not in combat, when we're moving around Cyrodiil is a big place to get around when you're on a mount. So no cost to the stamina on that. We've got Gifted Rider, which again increases our mount speed by 2% per stage. Always use Steed's Blessing because we get an extra 20% movement speed out of combat. So again, just moving around makes us feel really quick. I like being quick with our stamina build. And then we've got Rationer, which just adds 10%. You could probably slot Liquid Efficiency in here or something else if you wanted to, but I just use Rationer because the food lasts longer and then I'm happy. And then that is the build. So like I was saying to you there, I can... Alright, so I've moved over to my house a second. Obviously, we're now not in Cyrodiil, so the buffs are slightly... We don't get the stats going to look slightly different because we don't get that Battle Cry. But I'm going to show you the kind of rotation you want to do. Alright. I don't think we can actually use this ability on that. But we can't stun him. That's really annoying. But either way, you're going to buff up. And remember, Resolving Vigor is now a buff that we use. So we're getting 32,000 resistance on the front bar as we go in. 5815. But also on top of that, we're going to weapon damage. Pot. Now getting nearly 7,000. You're going to get slightly higher than this in Cyrodiil, okay? So then your rotation that you're going to do, so with all your buffs up, so that's like your defensive. But that's what you want to do as you're rushing in. Obviously, you can see there, that lasts absolutely forever, so you don't need to worry about rebuffing that all the time. But either way, we've got our Minor Resolve, Major Resolve, Minor Force, all that sort of stuff, right? You also get your Minor Brutality. So your weapon damage is going to be slightly higher, again, it's definitely going to hit over 7,000. Because when you use your stun, I don't know why I can't use the stun on the dummy, but when you use this, remember, as soon as you use that, you're going to get your Minor Brutality as well, okay? So that's an extra 10% on our weapon damage. So if we're at 9,000, we're going to get an extra 690, taking you to like 7,500 weapon damage overall, okay? So that's with your defensives up. On your full resistance when you are on your back bar and you're defending, is going to be at 35,000 resistance as well. You see that health recovery pops up massively. Again, half that when you're in Cyrodiil, so you're still going to get like 600 health recovery though, which is good. Weapon damage, pots. Again, remember though, the recoveries on our Magicka and Stamina are low, so we need a heavy attack, alright? So that helps with the recovery, because they're low. You normally want like 2,000 recovery in this, which we're not getting with this build, okay? So we need to heavy attack a lot. Okay. So anyway, that's with your buffs up. You know what you're kind of going to be getting, right? So then your main sort of rotation is going to be sort of stun, which obviously I can't use. So we're going to use our 1 key to stun. You know, apply your noxious breath. You're going to whap him until he gets down to 3% of around 20 to 30% health. And then you're just going to do that until he's dead. It's a very simple rotation. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice and simple. All right. With all them buffs up, sitting around 7,500 health and 30k resistance. 7,500 damage and around 30k resistance. You're going to be able to take people on very comfortably and very easily in Cyrodiil or Battlegrounds. All right. Just remember though, because normally after we've done our Noxious Breath and we apply a few Molten Whips, you can see it's not taking up too much of our recovery, but just remember to add in a few heavy attacks if you need to before you start executing. This takes up quite a bit of stamina. You can see if you have to use it a lot of times, you can slowly reduce your stamina. So you want to make sure you're weaving in these heavy attacks as well. Obviously remember to light attack weave in between each ability as well. Nice and quick and get the damage in. And there you go. Literally, it's going to save you absolutely... It's going to save you bacon. I promise you right now. If anyone's interested, actually, I'll show you the outfit style we're running. So we got the Dremora hat, the Nord Pauldrons 4 as well. Nord Gauntlets, Nord Greaves. I pretty much went all Nord, I think. Yeah, all Nord. Nord Mace, Nord Sword. Yeah, I just went all Nord with this guy. Backbar, that's the Opal... Is that Bloodspawn? Opal Bloodspawn, I think it is. It's not showing. Opal Bloodspawn shield with the Nord Axe as well. Again, you might have better motives than me. I don't know. I don't really care about it. It's just, I threw it all on. The colours are Cold Harbor Ash Black, Daedric Red, and Cold Harbor Ash Black again. Pretty much the same. As you can see, I made this outfit very quickly. So that's that there. But if you like the look of them, it's the hat, I think, is what most people are going to want to know. It's the Dremora hat. So yeah, there you go. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Enjoy the gameplay, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.